There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a page 112 tag, but really what this is a wee book haul in the form of a page 112 tag. I have done this kind of thing before, but not for a long time. Today in the mail I received 3 books that couldn't be more different, and all of them, I ordered them because they seemed like Sean books, and I thought, I have 3 new books, why don't I do a page 112? This will be my book haul for these 3. Let me give a very abbreviated version of talking about what the heck is the page 112 tag. Based on a literary prize, if you want the fuller explanation, I'll put a link to the original of these that I did years ago. Based on the technique that is at the heart of a French literary prize. If you want further details, here's a link in the show notes to my fuller explanation. I'm just going to read page 112 from these 3 books to you. I'm not going to tell you who the author is. I'm not going to tell you what the book is about. I am privy to that information, obviously, but I'm going to keep you in suspense, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on page 112 from each of the 3 books and give you my immediate reaction, assessment, and eventually ranking of the 3 in terms of which page I like best, second best, and the worst. That's basically it, and then I will show you the books. Let's get started. Book number 1. That's because they live on the mountaintops. When you live at that altitude, you're bound to have accidents. You can't live on a peak. Life is here on the plains. So what are you studying? I asked, feeling curious. Law. I'm going to be a solicitor. And earn fat fees? So what's wrong with earning? I'm not going to earn much. I'm going to be a writer. That's nothing to be proud of, not earning much, I mean. If you're going to write, you better plan to write well and become rich. A struggling writer in a garret. It's an honorable life, I said, as a sort of insurance, thinking of yellowed, unpublished manuscripts. Nothing noble about being unsuccessful, he said, shaking his head, and his silky hair went flip-flop. Just means you aren't good enough. Mozart was poor, you can't say he wasn't good enough. He lived in a world of feudal intrigues, not in Bombay today. I guess it's no use arguing with you, I said, thrilled with my defeat. I was tired of being the smartest kid around, especially when I knew I wasn't a genius. And Ruby and Tina and Dolly, I wouldn't have exchanged them for a new pair of legs, but I couldn't have talked to them like I'd talked to Cyrus, who'd just out-talked me. What's the time? He asked. A little past midnight, I said, looking at the hands saying 5 to 1. Shall we go home? Whatever you like, I said. Actually, you're the first person who's ever asked me. When I'm out with my parents or my sister or my friends, they turn back when they want to. He chuckled. I might do that myself when our walks become a daily affair. My heart jumped, as if I'd entered a bookshop. Why, I said, breathing slowly, why did you stay on in Bombay? Didn't you want to go to New Delhi, be with your parents? What sensible man would leave Bombay? Okay, I find it really challenging to assess pages that are mostly dialogue, which this is pretty much exclusively dialogue, but I rather liked it. I liked the dynamic between the two. I happen to know that it's a gay story, so there's no sense in me withholding that information, so I enjoyed the little flutter in the first-person narrator based on how the conversation's going with Cyrus. The one expository sentence is probably my favorite on the page. My heart jumped as if I'd entered a bookshop. I feel seen. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it. I just think it's lively and it's inviting, and I want to know more. So that's book number 1. Book number 2. And it reached out to Sylvia and me too when we came home from school. A dark, intangible presence. Inimical. I felt it even in chapel. I see a little picture, sharply clear, of Mother and Sylvia and me going home after the morning service. It is very cold. The streets have a bleached, drawn look. Very few people stand at the doors, but the smell of cabbage is as strong as ever. Mother walks quickly, humming a tune under her breath, and Sylvia and I run to keep up with her. Why don't we walk home with Mrs. Galloway and Mrs. Bowen now, Mother? Must I always walk with them? You always did before. Before what? Sharply. I do not know before what. I just look silly. And Mother gives an impatient little laugh and walks faster than ever. Before something, that's all I know, but I do not remark on it again. That picture fades, and another takes its place, a picture so astonishing that even now, after all these years, my pulse quickens to look on it. I am driving in the gig with Rosie. It is a cold, brilliant day, a week before Christmas, and we have been for a jaunt in the town. I am full of toasted scones and tinned apricots and cream and cakes, and I hold on my knee an immense box of chocolates and a book about Russia, in which country I am deeply interested at the moment. It has lovely colored plates, and it is my Christmas present from Rosie, who would much rather have given me a doll. I am very happy. Christmas is near. David is coming home. I have my book, and the chocolates, and a satisfactory fullness in my stomach. I am moved to suggest that we drive round by the riding school and give Mother and Sylvia a lift home. Rosie agrees and takes the opportunity of reminding me that half the chocolates are for Sylvia, as well as the doll in the blue box. We tie Sally to the railings and walk up the lane on the far side of the paddock. Sylvia is jumping her pony over a low hurdle. Well, I really like the writing. I think the writing is very vivid and very... There's just something really smart about the prose. The other book, the prose was very simple, which I liked, but this, I really like the prose. That's what draws me more than anything else. I don't know what's going on. It seems to be memories. Because of the first full sentence being at the end of a paragraph from page 111, I don't know what it means. And it reached out to Sylvia and me too. But I like this, a dark, intangible presence, inimical. And I see a little picture sharply clear of Mother and Sylvia and me. So that, I assume, is the memory. Just like later, the picture fades and another takes its place driving in the gig with Rosie. There is a looking back quality to this page that I'm curious about. I don't know from what vantage point in the character's life she is looking back. I assume it's a she. I just think that I have a real picture of the narrator as a child and what was important to her, and she's a bit nerdy. She got a book about Russia and not a doll. I'm intrigued. Yeah, I really like the writing. It's just really... There was a snappy, vivid quality to the prose that has hooked me. So that's book number 2. Book number 3. Wolfie lived in a spacious 2-bedroom. Bienvenue chez moi. Nice. The air was dense with a mixture of musky incense and the sharp, distinct smell of some sort of fermentation. The apartment was minimally decorated, with white walls and no drapes on the bay windows that looked out onto the sleepy street. The bareness of the room seemed curated, and I was surprised by it. I had spent many idle moments wondering about what Wolfie got up to outside of work, where he slept. I hadn't pictured this. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. "You live by yourself?" I asked, curling myself into a soft corner of the sofa. "No, I have a roommate. She's away, though." "Where?" "Thailand. Yoga teacher school, or something like that." He pulled a stool right up next to me. "Would you like something to drink?" "Maybe. What are you offering?" "Wine and some pop, probably." He walked across the room to the kitchen, and I followed behind him. I jumped and yelped in surprise at the fat black and white cat that sped across my feet. Wolfie turned quickly, saw the cat, and laughed at me. "That's Lulu," he said. "I found her scratching at my window last winter. She's annoying as fuck." "You took in a stray cat?" "Yeah," he shrugged. "She wanted to live here." In the kitchen, a filthy jellyfish-looking thing floated in a large glass jar on top of the white refrigerator. The sour smell seemed to originate from there. "What is that?" I asked in mild revulsion. Wolfie laughed again. "It's a SCOBY," he said, "for kombucha." "I don't know the meaning of any of the words you just said." I couldn't tear my eyes away from the funky jar. Okay, well, I've lucked out with today's choices because I quite like that too. It's the few really bizarre details that capture my interest here. The situation seems really ordinary and the dialogue is unremarkable, but it's the few very strange details, particularly the way it ends. The sour-smelling, filthy jellyfish-looking thing on top of the refrigerator. I don't know what kombucha is either. I will look that up later. The bareness of the room seemed curated. I don't know what's going on. Is this a date between Wolfie and the narrator? I don't know if it's a he or she narrator. Doesn't know Wolfie very well. First time in his place. So the smell of some sort of fermentation is whatever that thing is on top of the fridge. SCOBY, which is all capitalized for kombucha. I've heard of kombucha, but I don't know what it means. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it, but I liked it. So now I have to rank them. Oh no. I think what my reactions have made clearer than anything is that I quite liked all of them. So I would choose book number 2 as my first choice. That's the one that grabbed me the most. And then the other two, book number 1 and book number 3, pretty much equal, just grabbed me a little bit less viscerally, but still grabbed me. So it's almost arbitrary, but I would choose book number 1 as my second choice. Book number 2 is the one where it's Christmas memories and stuff when she was younger, and the Russian book instead of the doll for a Christmas present. That's definitely my first pick. And book number 1 would be my second pick, and that's the one where I happen to know it's a gay story, and I'm assuming that this is some kind of a date between the narrator and the other guy. And I liked the liveliness of the conversation and the heart that jumped as if he had just walked into a bookstore. That was a very endearing line. And book number 3, which is pretty equal to the page I just talked about another maybe date between Wolfie and whoever was narrating, and with the foul-smelling, fermenting thing on the fridge. I was quite engaged with that. But book number 2, hands down, is my first choice. So now I will reveal the books to you in the order of my ranking and tell you a little bit more about them. My first choice was book number 2, and that is Oh, the Brave Music by Dorothy Evelyn Smith. Very recently, in the last few weeks, reprinted in the British Library Women's Writers series. And it's a beautiful French flap, softcover with raised cover. It feels good on your hand. It is set before World War I. First published in 1943 and set just before World War I. Dorothy Evelyn Smith, born 1893, died 1969. This, I believe, was her debut novel, and she wrote 11 books over the next 20 or so years. She described herself as writing on the end of the kitchen table with bombs falling around the house. And this novel is a looking back of the protagonist, Ruan Ashley, R-U-A-N. How would you pronounce that? Ruan Ashley. Ruan Ashley. Looking back at her childhood. So it's a coming-of-age novel, kind of told in retrospect, set before the First World War. Dorothy Evelyn Smith was born in Derby, went to school in Yorkshire. Yes, I will be getting to this one. Oh, the Brave Music is quite the title. I wonder if music plays an important part of the story or where the title comes from. It's a well-made book, and based on page 112, sounds like a good one. My second choice was book number 1, and that is an Indian novel, Firdaus Kanga, Trying to Grow. I talked about this novel in my chat with Jyotsna of Jyotsna's Bookscapades, and because of that conversation, we're going to be buddy reading this, I think, in January, and my copy just arrived today. Firdaus Kanga is a gay disabled Indian writer, and he is of the Zoroastrian faith, and that's how this book and this author came up in our conversation. And I have seen the movie that this was made into, and I don't remember the title. I don't think the title was the same. I will put the title here, but I loved the movie, used to have the DVD, and have never read the novel. And it is out of print, and I got my copy in the mail, and it's freaking autographed by the author, March 1990. If I can read his handwriting, I believe it says, "To Blake, Our Home Stolen," from Firdaus, March 1990. I'm not sure. I can't really read that. For a home stolen? For an home stolen? I'm not sure. This was published in 1990, and it is, I believe, quite an autobiographical novel. The protagonist is Britt Cotwell. His sister Dolly, her name is mentioned on that page, calls him Britt, short for brittle, because of his bones. So he was born with the same condition that the author was, and this is a Parsi family, that's right. It's about kind of a coming-of-age story, and it has a romantic, because he does fall in love with a hunka hunka burning love of an Indian man that returns his affection, and I remember how beautiful that man was in the movie, and it's about a gay relationship. So it sounds like such a Sean book. I can't wait to read it. Ferdas Kanga hasn't written much in recent years, I don't believe. There is a picture. He was a very, very short man, and he played himself in the movie. There is his picture. Can't wait to start this buddy read with Jyotsna in early 2021. And my third pick, but I was as excited about it as I was about the book I've just shown you, is a nominee for this year's Giller Prize, Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread by Francesca Ekweyazi, who is a Nigerian-Canadian writer, originally from Lagos, and I assume she lives in Canada since this book was nominated for a Giller Prize, and it is a sensuous, mythic tale, debut novel, the interwoven stories of 3 Nigerian women. And I remember when Lindy and I talked about the Giller Prize in a Zoom discussion recently that she loved it, and I ordered it based on her enthusiasm, and I also now, since then, have seen The Poptimist rave about it. This page 112 makes me think that I'm going to be getting to it sooner rather than later. So were those Sean books, or were those Sean books? And this is a demonstration of how you too can use the page 112 technique when you go shopping for books or go to the library. Pull books that interest you off the shelf and sit down, if you can find a place to sit down in the bookstore, and read the page 112s, and only choose the ones where that page's prose and narrative grabs you. Based on my reaction to these 3, I made 3 good purchases. That's it. Thanks for watching.